Have you ever had negative thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast.
Welcome to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. I've got Eric Feinendegen on the show today. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Jeff. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's get into state. Let's do a couple power breaths in. We're going to breathe in through that belly, up through our chest, and up through the back of our head. So let's go ahead, breathe in and out. Good. Another breath in and out. Final one, breath in and out. All right, I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. We're going to yell boom, bring some energy to this podcast in 3, 2, 1, and boom. All right. Eric, welcome to the show. So let's get right into it. Morning habits, rituals, routines. What is your go-to morning habit ritual that you do on a day in, day out basis that sets you up for success?
Sure. And by the way, before I get into that, Jeff, first of all, thanks for having me. I've started to watch and listen to your podcast. So right off the bat, that is my new morning routine that I've started to implement. So thank you for that. And I felt that boom, Jeff, all the way from Pennsylvania here in Chicago.
Nice.
It is great to be here. And, before we look at, how I do my morning routine, I think it is important that we go to the why, right? I love what Simon Sinek says. We always want to start with the why. And before I explain some of the things that have worked for me, Jeff, I do want to share a little bit of my story, which is 5.5 years ago. I went through a time in my life that was extremely difficult. I was dealing with some professional as well as some personal issues, and that caused an extreme amount of stress and anxiety, which up to that point, right, I had never had to face before. Up until about 2015, for an entrepreneur and someone that does public speaking for a living, I have been pretty unscathed. So I was facing a crisis situation, and, I had to take a look at, all right, what are my habits? How am I going to deal with this stress? So I went to see a psychologist, and he looked at me and he said, Eric, stress will kill you. Now, if nothing grabs your attention other than that statement, I don't know what will. So he introduced a routine that I use to this day called biofeedback. You just did a little bit of that as we started out here, which is deep breathing. And you get feedback from that breathing, and it does put you in a type of a calm type state. But he took it a step further, and he said, Eric, have you ever experienced or taken part in hypnosis? Now, I got to admit, right off the bat, I'm like, whoa, a little bit too deep for me, because like most people, hypnosis for me was just something that was meant for the stage, right? I had been to a couple of shows in college where people, they quack like ducks, do some crazy things. But given the state that I was in, I was open to it.
Okay.
So I went through, a series of hypnosis sessions, which led to me doing now self-hypnosis on a daily basis. So my morning routine, to get back to your question, actually starts the night before I go to bed. I do a self-hypnosis session anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes. And I know some of your guests are talking about meditation. Yep. This takes it a step further because it introduces imagination and self-suggestion. And what a lot of people aren't aware of is when it comes to the subconscious mind, it's infinitely more powerful than the conscious mind. It never shuts off. It takes everything literally, and it doesn't know the difference between a real event and an imagined event. So what really helps me, and I think it'll help your listeners, is before I go to bed, I will again engage in a self-hypnosis session. And all night while I'm sleeping, my mind is working toward whatever I give it. I say, okay, this is what I want. This is how I want to feel when I wake up in the morning. This is my perfect day the next day. These are some of the things I want to accomplish. And ever since I've been doing that, Jeff, my life has changed for the better. Now, again, I still have problems and issues like everybody, but it was a great step for me. I think it's something that your listeners should definitely consider.
Yeah, and I love that, Eric, the preparing the night before, right? Preparing for what the day ahead is going to look like. And I'm a firm believer, just like you are through your practice, what you feed your mind before you go to sleep, that subconscious mind's going to stew over it. It's going to work through those, how you want to be, feel, act, what success you want. And it's a very powerful piece to the equation. So kudos for you being there and understanding it, and then looking for help and figuring it out. So that's wonderful to hear. So public speaking, right? You're a
Yes.
TEDx speaker. You're a 2-time finalist, world champion in the World Championship of Public Speaking. Everybody has a fear of public speaking, right? So I think hearing your journey would most likely benefit everyone listening, watching, and tuning in. So if you could dive into that a little bit, it'd be great.
Sure. Well, first of all, when it comes to public speaking, there's 2 types of speakers, Jeff. Those that get nervous, and then those that lie about it, right? And that's a quote from Mark Twain. So I want to put it right up. Anyone that tells you that they don't get nervous, even when they're doing this podcast, right? They're in an interview, giving a sales presentation. Anyone says that they're not nervous is literally lying about it. So I want to debunk that myth, right off the bat. But my journey into public speaking started like a lot of others. I had a very bad experience in college. I had to deliver a term paper. I'll never forget it. My senior year, everybody had to deliver this term paper in front of the class in order to graduate. And I had never done any public speaking up to that point. So I didn't know how to prepare, right? I didn't know how to visualize, Anyways, I got up there and literally the whole room went blank. I went blank. I know I was up there for 20 minutes is what I'm told. Okay. Thank goodness back in the mid-90s, there were no iPhones. So the carnage was not captured on video, right? But then I had another bad experience once I got into the professional world. Many careers ago, I did employee benefit presentations. And again, I was struggling through some of those. So I thought, okay, Eric, something needs to change. So I joined an organization called Toastmasters, and that was about 17 years ago. And I've been on a journey of unbelievable growth, and literally it's like any skill. The more you do it, Jeff, the better you're going to become. But you have to fail. The key is you have to go out, take your lumps, right? It's just like a musician. Nobody picks up a guitar, and play Stairway to Heaven right off the bat. You're going to sound like crap. You're going to be bad. But the key is to get started. And I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs on this call. Here's my philosophy, that if you are not speaking about your business, you are losing business. To me, public speaking is the #1 way to gain attention to your brand, to gain customers, and to grow your company. For example, for 6 years, I taught public speaking to a graduate school class, Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. And it was an executive 101 class. And these are seasoned executives, pay grade much higher than mine, levels much higher than mine. But they didn't know how to share their message. They didn't know how to communicate. So that just further proved to me that, hey, this is a skill that we have to embrace. And I don't care if it's virtual or in person. If we can't verbally persuade or inform a group of people, we're going to miss a lot of opportunities. So kind of a long-winded answer for you, Jeff. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of my thoughts on public speaking.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I love hearing, hey, you had failures in the beginning, right? Because I think so many times we see highlight reels, we see your TEDx talk that I watched prior to this interview, and so polished, right? Controlling a room and a great speaking session, but you started out in failure. And I think we have such a big misconception with, we're going to just pick something up and we're going to be amazing at it. And it's just not the reality of the situation. I remember starting this podcast. I was awful. I had no energy, right? But I didn't know any better. But I was committed to it. And to your point, if you're committed to getting better, to working at it, having some positive language around, not just saying, I suck as a public speaker. Well, if you continue to say that, you're not going to get any better, right? Because you're putting it out into the universe.
Yeah. So Jeff, I want to share this as well. And you mentioned, people see my TEDx speech. They see my world championship of public speaking finalist speeches. I'm on big stage. I'm talking to 3,000 people, bright lights, close-ups, right? It's like the tip of the iceberg. They don't see everything below that. And if I could leave your listeners with this, 98% of the success of your speech happens before you ever take that stage. It's all in the rehearsal. It's all in the homework. It's all in the message. It's in the crafting. See, what people don't realize is, they'll see my 7.5 minutes, in Las Vegas on the big stage. But what they don't see is me working with a body language coach, a speech coach, a humor coach, a vocal coach, a thinking coach. The 200 plus live rehearsals that I did to get to that point. The 31 drafts that I went through for a 7-minute speech. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do that for every presentation, but as the stakes get higher, so does your level of preparation.
Gotcha. I like that. As the stakes get higher, so does your level of preparation. So if you have somebody, right, one of my listeners who has a fear of getting on a Facebook Live or speaking to a group, what are 2 or 3 strategies that they can use to improve the craft of public speaking?
Sure. Well, let's go back to nerves. I think people don't have a fear of public speaking per se. What they have a fear of is embarrassing themselves, because we public speak each and every day. When you're leaving a voicemail, you're public speaking. When you're talking in public, you're speaking right in front of an audience. So we communicate every day. It's the fear of being embarrassed. And what I would suggest is you switch that from making it about you as a presenter to now making it about your audience. See, the challenge is, I've got to be perfect. I'm concerned about what I'm going to say, how am I going to look, all that. When we're focused too inward, that's when we get nervous. But when we focus on adding value, on sharing a message, on portraying a lesson that we've learned in our life that can truly change someone's life, and you're offering a gift to people, when you look at it from that perspective, all of a sudden, all that anxiety and fear and anxiousness, it starts to just drip away, because now your focus is in the right spot, which is on your audience and not yourself. So that would be the number one tip. But again, it does go back to the rehearsal, right? When I train people and coach people, I say, okay, go ahead and run through it, right? And now we're going to make it difficult for you. Now we're going to give you technical problems. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and make sure that, I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to throw something at you. I'm going to scream in your face, because it's real easy, right? It's like, the golf game. It's real easy, to make par when you hit in the middle of the fairway, right? And you hit a good shot. But what happens when you face problems, right? That is the true test of a public speaker. It's when the sound goes out. It's when someone faints in your audience. It's when the wait staff drops something. It's when the fire alarm goes on. All of these things, Jeff, have happened to me. But as the person on stage, you've got to show your audience you're in control. You have it handled. So when you're rehearsing, just don't rehearse, in perfect conditions. Make it difficult for you. Quick example, then move on to the next question. When I was preparing for the 2015 World Championships, I had just won my semifinal. And which meant that I had outspoken 35,000 contestants from 146 countries. Right. So I was on cloud nine. I'm about to, face an audience of 3,000 people on the world stage, but I had to go through the rehearsal the night before to make sure I was ready. So I was training with the 2012 world champion, and he said, Eric, go ahead and give your speech. So I delivered like I'd done, hundreds and hundreds of times before. And he said, okay, now I'm going to see if you're ready. And Jeff, I got to tell you, I wish I had it taped. He was about this close to my face, right? Screaming in my face, right? Ridiculing me, right? Calling me every name in the book, walking out, dropping stuff, right? Threatening with physical harm. But you know what? I got through it. And when we were done, he looked at me and said, Eric, now you're ready. So that would be my second tip, which is don't practice just in perfect conditions. Practice in conditions that are going to really test you. So when it does happen in real life, and trust me, it will happen in real life, you've been there before.
Yeah, no, I love the switch to helping people, right? That focus on who you're helping in the audience for your first tip, and then rehearsing when the environment isn't perfect. And I had the same thing happen just in November, where I was doing a Zoom speaking engagement with a company, and they were all in the Americas, and my laptop crashed. And then I tried to boot up my other laptop. Next thing you know, I'm on my phone with my AirPods in, and I was 10 minutes late. Luckily, they stayed for me, but I still delivered. I needed to calm myself down and say, okay, you've got this, right? Some positive self-talk. But it's moving forward now. I know any circumstance that comes my way, for the most part, I can handle, right? So I love those two pieces. So communication and presentation skills, right? And I know you said you have multiple different coaches, right? Body language, voice coach, all of those things. Touch a little bit on communication skills as you see it, and some top pieces that people can take from the podcast to implement in their own life. Sure.
Well, I want to talk about the coaching piece just very briefly. And again, a little bit about my story. I had struggled for close to 12 years with trying to make it to the world stage, the World Championship public speaking.
Okay.
And Jeff, what made the difference for me, and I know it's going to make a difference for your listeners, is when I started working with coaches, then all those blind spots that I couldn't see now were crystal clear. Because, whether it's work, relationships, public speaking, whatever it is in your life, many times, right, we're too close to it. We can't see, sometimes we're in the bottle. We can't see the label because we're in the bottle. So working with coaches, and again, whether it's public speaking, communication, whatever it may be, will really change. It'll change your life. It'll change how you view things. And if you look at some of the best performers in the world, I don't care if it's a musician, an athlete, they all work with multiple coaches. So if your listeners, if you really want to be a great communicator, work with the great communicators. Study the people that can relay a message, that connect with you. And I'd also say, study the people that you don't like, because we're all going to have our style on stage and as communicators, right? Some people will really gravitate to, others we can't stand. Trust me, Jeff, there are public speakers, I'm not going to name names, that I can't even listen to, but I know, right? I know what they do well, but I know what I don't like. And then I use that to make sure that I don't share those same things in my communication style.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So living an inspired life, right? Obviously you had 5.5 years ago, you had that really stressful time, anxiety, all those pieces. You went through that journey to develop, self-correct. And now you have that established. Tell me a little bit about, what inspires you on a daily basis to live each day and be grateful and step into the present.
Sure. Well, my personal opinion is too many people are walking around, right? They're alive from the neck down, but from the neck up, They're just going through the motions. You know, I have 3 kids, and you know, they're all big dreamers. Like most kids, it's easy for them to believe in a better tomorrow.
Yep.
But as we grow up, as we, you know, through adolescence and adulthood, we've been beat up, you know, chewed up, spit out, you know, business failures, relationship failures, right? All these things, right? We become calloused, and we lose the sense of wonder, right? The sense of possibility. Many times the dreams that we've had in the past, it's just, is it worth it to dream anymore? You know, we've been disappointed and disillusioned so many times, right, that sometimes we just give up. And great, we're just going through the motions. Let me get through the day. Let me get to the weekend. Not for me. And I don't think it's for your listeners either. So what I've done is, I mean, my book will be out shortly, is I've compiled what I feel are strategies to live an inspired life. And if I had to sum it up into one nugget, it would be this. It's continual growth and continuing to strive to do things that you thought you couldn't do. And whether that's you starting your podcast, right? Having that self-doubt, like, are people going to listen to it? Yeah, can I provide value? Or being an entrepreneur, do I leave my security of my corporate job, right? Is this something that I should do? But as you attempt things, and you navigate through that maze, and you find that you can do things that you originally thought you couldn't, man, there is no better feeling. There is no better. If you told me, because I started my career as a numbers guy, if you told me that I'd be a TEDx speaker, a 2-time finalist in the World Championship of Public Speaking, that I'd share the stage with Brian Smith, the founder of UGG Boots, and I'd share the stage with Jake Poor, one of the founders of Disney Pixar, right? I'd say, you're crazy.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. Yeah, I'm not capable of that. But by going back to the premise of risk, continuing to fail, I failed my way to the top. I just kept being bad until I figured out how to not be bad anymore. I mean, that's basically what it came down to. And that to me is really the crux of living an inspired life. Continuous growth, taking calculated risk and chances, improving to yourself that you can do things that you thought at one point in your life that you were not capable of. Man, Jeff, I'm getting pumped up just talking about it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It makes me so excited, and to see, and I want to talk about, success and significance, because I've made a shift in my life. My whole life, Jeff, it's always been about Eric Feinendegen, right? How can how can I be successful?
Mm-hmm.
But then I became, trained and certified through John C. Maxwell, who's arguably the #1 leadership expert in the world. And, I was in an audience of about 5,000 people, but I felt like he was talking directly to me. He said, there's going to come a time where you're going to make that shift from success to significance, which is, what's in it for me to what's in it for we. Meaning, how can I not only help myself, but help others as well? And that, when I made that shift, Jeff, right, then I'm like, that opened up a whole new world, because I know that, okay, now I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And that is yet something else that I feel can inspire your audience. It's not just about us, it's about the bigger whole. And anyways, you got me fired up, Jeff.
Nice.
I could go on for, I know we're on a time limit, but it does get me excited. Thank you for that question.
No, absolutely. And I think I loved how you said so many people are just living from the neck down, right? That they're going through the motions, and 5.5 years ago, you had your moment. I mean, a little over 6 years ago, I had my moment where I lost my mom to breast cancer, and it was one of those transformation. And I know every day is a gift, and so many people out there aren't using that gift, and they're stuck. They're on that never-ending treadmill. And I like to use what if, right? What if I could pull this off? What if I could do it? And stretch your imagination a little bit to think about things that are out of your comfort zone, and why not try them? Why not push yourself? And to your point, when you do something you didn't think was possible, or you push yourself past that comfort zone, that's where growth is. And you're either growing or you're getting worse, right? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And there's no status quo, right? It's one or the other. And so many people say, well, I'm just staying the same. You're not. You're actually getting worse, right? If you're not growing.
Well, if you think about it this way, the world is changing at hyper speed. So if we're not changing with the world, to your point, you're right, we're getting left behind. We're becoming worse. We don't play, we don't make the rules, we got to play by the rules. And, if you look at the last 12 to 15 months with the pandemic and COVID, we've been under a hyper evolution and how to adapt and pivot and everything else, right? In order to survive in this new strange world that we're in, right? And if we're not willing to adapt to all these changes, again, to your point, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to change with it. We really do.
Absolutely. So Eric, where can people find you?
Yes. All right. So my website's the best place, www.inspiretoempower.net. They can also find me via the social media sites, Facebook, LinkedIn. And I love to connect with as many people on your show as possible. I do offer, keynote speaking, training, coaching, you name it, anything communication related. Love it. It's my passion. And it's just, it's my thing. It's my thing.
Love it. Love it. Eric, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. I very much appreciate it.
And thank you for having me. And best of luck to you and all your listeners, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.